This is Chris. Today, he has 17 revenue streams and goes viral with all his business ideas and marketing stunts.
We did 160 grand our first 30 days. And then our first year, we did about $1 million. And then we've been growing at 30 to 80% every year.
How many revenue streams will you have this year?
I'm at about 17, give or take. The goal is 3 million net income to me.
But what's crazy is his simple techniques to capitalize on business opportunities, turning a small iPhone repair shop into something much larger.
I got a cold call and they said, hey, we want to buy your broken iPhone screens. That made no sense to me because there was no value in them up until that point. And then I learned that they could be remanufactured in China. And so I thought, that's what I'm doing next. That was the business that built this house.
This one insight led to his next venture, which immediately took off.
That first month, we did 28,000 in revenue. Next month, we did 56,000. And then that first full year, we did 2.1 million.
But what's most interesting about Chris is how he uses the same repeatable frameworks to find and start all of his businesses.
I always like to start a new business with a database. I start hyper-local and I start with almost no money. Constraints equal creativity. I grew up poor, scrappy. I firmly believe if you go raise a bunch of money, you're gonna be far less creative because there's always a cheaper alternative. And it's like just the most asymmetric opportunity I've ever seen.
So I flew to Dallas to sit down with Chris and learn his exact framework for finding and validating business opportunities using data, the two biggest business opportunities for anyone to start today, and he shares exactly how he would do that, and of course, his favorite software tools and tactics to grow all these businesses so quickly. He lists out a ton of these, so I'll link them in the description below. Let's hop in. Chris.
Yeah.
We made it to the Kerner office. Thank you for having us.
The literal Kerner office.
The Kerner office. Let's jump right in. So how many revenue streams will you have this year?
I'm at about 17, give or take, depending on how you count certain things.
Okay. And then what will that add up to roughly?
The goal is 3 million net income to me. Realistically, will probably be around 1.5 or 2.
You make great content on the internet, and it's not just about business ideas. It's about businesses that you're actually doing.
Yeah.
And we're going to dive into a lot of them here today. Earlier, we were just talking about the business that helped pay for this beautiful home of yours. What was that?
It was a company called LCD Cycle. And it all started when I was manning an iPhone repair store that I started in college. I got a cold call and they said, hey, we want to buy your broken iPhone screens. That made no sense to me because there was no value in them up until that point. And then I learned that they could be remanufactured in China. And so I thought, that's what I'm doing next. And so I did. I found out how to get these things shipped to China, shipped back over, and that was the business that built this house.
How would you go back to your younger version self of what actually happened there?
Yeah, so it started when it was 2010. iPhone had been out for a couple of years. I didn't even have one. And I was a student at the University of Alabama. And one of the students was like, I've got a broken iPhone in my drawer. And I was like, well, I'll take it. I grew up poor. I just wanted it. And so he brought it to class. And then around the same time, I saw a flyer that said, I'll fix your broken iPhone for $60. So I thought, okay. So I went to meet this kid in his dorm room and he was fixing my iPhone and I was just peppering him with questions. I'm just curious. And so I was like, where'd you get the screen? How much did it cost? How are you doing that? Is that a suction cup? And then I left the dorm room thinking, that's gonna be my first real business. That's what I wanna do, iPhone repair. And so I started Googling around and I learned that iPhone repair stores were starting to open and they were doing great. And so I thought, okay, I'm not gonna do this the slow way. I'm gonna find the best real estate I can find, sign a 5-year lease, and I'm gonna start fixing iPhones.
So you immediately took action, you did that, and then you later sold that business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started that business, grew to 5 locations in the first 18 months, sold it to a local competitor. Actually, while we were under contract to sell, I didn't really have anything lined up, and I got that call, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna do that next.
And so once you did that next business, that was the LCD business.
Yep.
How quickly did that grow?
I went to Alibaba, started cold messaging people about buying back screens and selling screens. I launched on January 2nd, 2013, the day after I sold my other business. That first month, we did 28,000 in revenue. Next month, we did 56,000. So we doubled exactly. And the third month, we did 150 something thousand. And then that first full year, we did 2.1 million.
And then what did you do after that?
I ran that for 7 years. And all along the way, I was just testing little businesses and side hustles. And then after that, I started really buying commercial real estate, actually.
How did you grow so quickly? Were you had basically identified your customer who was the same business that you had started before, and then how did you find all those customers across the country?
Yeah, and I think that's an important framework because I didn't have to have owned iPhone repair shops to see the opportunity here, but because I did, I knew all the pain points that the guys in my industry were struggling with. We got our foot in the door by offering them money for their broken iPhone screens. And then once they trusted us, then we came back and said, hey, we actually sell new parts as well. Batteries, cables, what have you. And I knew that there was not a good supplier in the industry either. And so that was kind of a hole that I wanted to fill. And so we started the business as, an iPhone screen buyback company. But at the end of the day, 80% of our revenue was from selling new parts to these repair stores.
And then you probably called a couple in your local town, but then you used the internet to scrape others, or how'd you approach that?
I always like to start a new business with a database. So I found this software that I don't even think exists anymore that enabled me to scrape Google Maps. I had a couple monitors. I had Wikipedia open in one monitor, every MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area in America. And I distinctly remember number one was New York, and there's like 242 of them. Number 242 was Carson City, Nevada. On my other monitor, I had this software open and I would search iPhone repair, Carson City, Nevada, iPhone repair, Knoxville, Tennessee, iPhone repair, New York City, New York. And then I would have to scrape each MSA over and over and over, 242 times. It took a week. And then I had to remove all the duplicates because there's some overlap. And at the end of the day, I was left with about 20,000 rows in a spreadsheet: business name, owner name, cell phone number, email, address, website, Facebook URL. I had a database of every potential customer.
And then you just cold outreach.
Yeah. And then I thought, okay, most of these are cell phones. I don't want to cold call them. I don't like cold calling. But I knew how to find virtual assistants. And so I logged on to Odesk at the time, which is now Upwork. And I hired 3 Filipino virtual assistants that had sales experience. And I think I used Zoho as like my CRM. I uploaded everything into my CRM, and then I wrote a script in Microsoft Word. And I said, all right, call up the repair shops, tell them you'll pay $3 per broken iPhone screen. We'll pay them via PayPal, and we'll send a prepaid shipping label. And then they just started calling, and boxes of broken iPhone parts started showing up at my house.
How much of your time back then and even now would you say you do things that you don't like doing?
I have to go out of my way to do that. I think that's an important thing. Like if I want to go get a salad, I've got to drive by 4 fast food restaurants to get there. You have to go out of your way to do hard things nowadays, but that's how you grow.
Well, I guess I mean more so like you didn't want to cold call yourself, so you just got a VA to do it. And
Yeah.
like you might not want to just stick with one business, you go to the next one. So like as it relates to just your overall excitement, do you believe in just picking one thing and grinding it out, or having sort of multiple irons in the fire?
I like to feed my curiosities. If I see something over here that looks really interesting, I just find a way to explore that without letting go of that all the way. And you familiar with Parkinson's law?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I live by that. And for those that are watching, they don't understand it, is time or tasks or anything expand or contract to fit the resources allotted to it. So if I take on 8 different side hustles, one person might ask, well, how do you have time for all that? Well, it's like I do. And if one of them doesn't look promising, then I naturally just won't give much time to it. And the things that are just keeping me up all night because customers and Shopify notifications, I'm naturally going to allocate more time towards it. And so at the end of the day, it'll all work out. Like say yes to everything, put everything on your plate. The carbs might fall off, the rice, the potatoes, but you're going to eat the steak, you're going to eat the lobster, and you're going to live a great life, even though you're not focusing.
Right. And that's allowed you to do some of these viral stunts that you've pulled off before. In particular, the ones with Buc-ee's. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about, for somebody listening, we're in Texas right now, can you explain what Buc-ee's is and how you partnered with them?
Yeah, Buc-ee's is a 50 chain gas station, but their gas stations are about as big as grocery stores. They have 100 plus pumps, and they have an amazing brand. It's this beaver face, and they have billboards miles before you ever get to a Buc-ee's. And people are just obsessed with this company, myself included. And so I went to a Buc-ee's 4 years ago, and I brought my cousin. And at the time, we were running a third-party logistics company, which we just shipped orders for Shopify brands. I pulled out my phone because I said, Kirk, these guys must just crush it online. I said, they must sell so much online because people fall in love with it and then they can't buy it anymore. So I go to their website and there's no shop button on their homepage, which blew my mind. I wanted them as a customer because we had a business that enabled e-commerce for brands. And so I started reaching out, cold emailing the CEO, the founders, no response, crickets. I said, what if we bought one of everything and hired a photographer, launched the store for them, and then kind of presented it and said, hey, maybe you said no or you ignored us because of all the friction to launching a store. We just did it for you. And maybe it'll go viral. Maybe they try to sue us. Maybe it becomes our own business. I don't know, but it'll be a good story.
And so what happened?
I posted to Reddit. We got one order. A lot of activity, one order. Pickled quail eggs is what our first thing sold was. And then I started cold emailing reporters. And I said, this is what we did. This is what we're trying to do. This is who we are. What do you think? And they loved it. This news outlet called Texas Monthly, it's one of the biggest news outlets in Texas. They said, we want to write about this. So I got on the phone with the reporter. Later in the day, he called me and said, hey, the Buc-ee's lawyer wants to talk to you. They have some questions. And I was like, oh crap. That was a fun ride. But I'd done my research. It's called first sale doctrine, which says that anyone can sell anything they want. They just can't impersonate the brand. And so we were careful to say, we're not Buc-ee's, we're third party, we're just reselling it. We pay full retail. They wrote about us, then Southern Living and Eater and all of these outlets wrote about us, and we went crazy viral.
What did that business look like?
We roll up in a box truck. They load it up with a forklift, but then we pay full retail like everyone else at the register.
Oh, wow. And so that is called Texas Snacks now?
Texas Snacks, yeah.
And then what's that like ballpark? What did that do that first year or till then?
We did 160 grand our first 30 days. And then our first year we did about $1 million. And then we've been growing at 30 to 80% every year, very consistently.
Nice. And like what's rough margin on that if you're paying retail?
Net margin is about 15%.
Okay.
And gross is about 50.
And another theme of the things that you've done is step one is get in the game. You were in the game because you had your 3PL business. And so you knew how to help businesses with their e-commerce and fulfillment. You probably wouldn't have been able to do that had you been like, oh, maybe, I don't have that skill, but I'm just going to reach out to Buc-ee's. Where else have you gotten in the game in terms of some of these other businesses?
The whole reason I was doing e-com fulfillment is because I had this nagging question. And so it was late 2019. I had a friend here in Dallas that had a bread company that sold in about 220 local grocery stores. And he had a small business and he wasn't selling online. I could just tell he wasn't going to do anything. And so I said, all right, shake my hand on this. I'm going to buy some flyers and I'm going to go to your warehouse and I'm going to train all of your employees on how to insert these flyers. And I'm going to build a website and put e-commerce on it. I'm going to take pictures. I'm going to do everything. You don't do anything. I'll spend all the money. And if this works, then you'll give me a cut of anything I sell on your website. And if it doesn't, then I lose money and I have a good story. That turned into Send Eats, which was my e-commerce fulfillment brand.
Wow. And maybe similar to framework number one, a foot in the door, you tend to start hyper local. Mm-hmm. What other businesses have you started in that same, or maybe continue to do in that same realm?
Yeah, I start hyper local and I start with almost no money. Constraints equal creativity. Like I'm going to get that tattooed right here. And I don't have any tattoos, but I grew up poor, scrappy. And so like I firmly believe if you go raise a bunch of money, you're going to be far less creative and maybe far less successful than you would have been otherwise, because there's always a cheaper alternative, always. And so sometimes people see the businesses I've built and what I have and like, oh yeah, well you have, I don't raise money. I didn't have rich parents. I didn't have rich friends. There's just always a creative way to do it cheaper.
When did you first discover for yourself that was possible?
When I started my iPhone repair store, because all of my mentors, friends told me, all right, start in your dorm room, start small, learn how to do it, and then get a store and then get a second store. And I'm just impatient, right? And sometimes that can conflict with being cheap because I really felt like I needed a physical retail presence, not just any, but like the best I could find, which was $2,500 a month. And I was a poor college student with a newborn, married. That was a lot. But the way I saw it was every day I go without launching this business is revenue I will never capture, right? Someone's going to break their iPhone today and they're going to take it to the Apple store or somewhere else, or they'll never get it fixed, or they won't even know you can get it fixed. And so I need to open as soon as I can because as far as I was concerned, I was losing money every day I wasn't open. But I needed like 20 grand to open, and I did not have it. I used student loans. I used a credit card. I went to a guy I knew in Europe. I served a mission for my church over there, And I start racking my brain, like, who are all the rich people I know? And I came up with like 2. And they were both small business owners. And in retrospect, they both probably aren't very that rich. They probably just had, a little disposable income. And one of them said no. And the other one over in Europe, he's like, yeah, give me your wiring info. So he sent me 10 grand, and I put that together with my credit card advance, and I opened a store that looked terrible. I mean, cement floors. I hired a handyman off Craigslist to build a desk. I threw up some drywall to separate the front from the back, and we were in business.
If somebody's listening to this and they're in a full-time job but they like the idea of entrepreneurship, maybe they're trying something right now, what opportunities do you see that people can go out and do for themselves right now if they wanted to make, say, 10K a month?
I see the two top ones that come to mind. They're both service businesses. So home service, specifically one that has better tech than other home service businesses. Because if you call 20 landscapers, and I've actually done this recently, about 4 will answer the phone. I don't care where you're calling. It's about, 80% will never pick up the phone. So tech, even if it's just Google Voice, right? Tech-enabled service business, so you can stand out, or tech-enabled marketing agency, like any sort of a marketing agency. Email marketing, pay-per-click, what have you.
Some of your other businesses that you've done, you've used things like programmatic SEO.
Mm-hmm.
How do you look at that opportunity?
I think programmatic is massive, especially as AI takes over. We have a programmatic project that I'm happy to talk about, where if you're in Schenectady, New York, there's 100,000 people there. Maybe you have a dog that just died and you want him cremated. So you Google dog cremation near me. There's no one in Schenectady, but there's still 100,000 people. And the cremation facilities that are within a couple hours, they're busy. They're not paying for keywords because they don't need to. They're already doing great. And so we built this website that's just a lead gen funnel for pet and horse cremation and euthanasia leads, of all things. And who would have thought of it?
Right. And I love that example because exactly who would have thought of that? But I'd imagine that you thought of it because you were looking at search volume, keyword difficulty, and high cost per click.
I thought of it because I say yes to everything, right? And my friend came to me, he worked in private equity, and he said, hey, I think there's a big opportunity in pet cremation. I think we should start a pet cremation business. I'm like, okay, I'm down. What are we doing? He's like, we got to buy a burner. It's 300 grand. We need a backup incinerator. That's 150, because if your main one goes out, you still got to be able to cremate the pets. So 450 all in, be safe. I say we need $1 million, and I'm cheap. So it's like, okay, how can we get around that? So I said, well, what if, how much are existing cremation facilities using their incinerators? Probably like 5% of the time. Okay. Could we go use theirs? It's not really a thing. Well, let's try. So we scraped a database of all the cremation facilities, started calling. And so we just said, hey, we're going to compete with you. We could buy our own incinerators, but we don't want to. Yours is being unused 95% of the time. We're going to buy a refrigerated van. We have contacts with vets to pick up the animals. Can we rent your facility, or just be a middleman and be a logistical provider, and then you mark up your services to us? And we found 2 that said yes. And so that got me looking for keywords. It all comes full circle. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, wow, there's a lot of search volume for pet cremation, and there's almost no one paying for keywords, presumably because they don't need more growth. They're doing just fine. That led to our programmatic website.
And some of your videos, I love that you'll talk to, I don't know, I think the other day you had a teenager who was doing like 900K mm-hmm. in junk removal and things like that. So now you see all these happening. What is your take for the opportunities here in somebody who's like, yeah, I'm like a tech person and I want to work on the internet, versus all the opportunities that are in maybe some of these boring businesses?
Yeah, the pie is big enough for everyone, right? So everyone's attention is going to AI, as it should. Mine is as well, because it's changing everything. But that means that the people that were interested in boring businesses a few years ago are now like, this sweaty startup's kind of sweaty. That boring business is pretty boring, actually. Yeah. That's why people don't re-roof houses. You could die up there, And so they're going to AI, and then all these roofers or tree trimmers or HVAC companies, they're doing even better now because of AI. So people are doing great when they go to AI, and the people who are doing the sweaty stuff are doing great. It's just, there's more opportunity for everyone now.
Speaking of tree trimmers, you also have a tree trimming business here. How did you get into that, and what does that look like?
5 or 6 years ago, I was building a tech business with a partner. It was an app, a real estate app. And his brother was launching a tree trimming business. So at the time, I'm a domain name junkie. I bought the domain name fasttreecare.com, and it was available for $10. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do something with that one day. So then 3 years later, I'm on Twitter. I was like, let's tweet about how to start a tree trimming business. So I just talked about my story, how I helped my friend's brother find these leads and these jobs, and here's how I do it. I use these tools and these tools. I make it tech enabled like we talked about. And the tweet went viral. It got like 500,000 views. A bunch of people started tree trimming businesses just based on that tweet. And then I thought, I should eat my own dog food and start a tree trimming business based on my own advice. And so we did.
And so how did you, what did that look like for next steps of launching it for yourself?
Yeah, so we scraped a database of all the tree trimming crews in Dallas-Fort Worth. A lot of them are just middlemen like me. And then some of them were the people that did the work directly. And so we reached out to them and said, hey, meet me at a park. I want you to quote a job. So we set up these half-hour increment appointments with these crews. Half of them didn't show up, quarter of them were late. And we said, all right, here's an oak tree. What would you quote? And we just had a spreadsheet, 400, 1,400, 200, 700. And then we interviewed them and we're like, hey, we want to start a tree trimming business, but we're more marketers than anything. We want you to do all the work. You quote the job at what you need to make money and we'll mark it up. We don't want to buy it. We don't want to even know about tree trimming. We want to know just enough to quote the job. And we just kind of interviewed them. And then we started marketing and we used the same tech tools to find residential customers. And then we would show up at the job site. We'd meet the tree trimming crew. We'd quote it. Let's say the quote was $1,000 from the crew. We'd quote $2,200, knowing that they'd probably negotiate. And then we try to settle at about a 50% margin.
So you've, I'd imagine, chopped down 0 trees yourself.
Mm-hmm. We literally don't own a chainsaw.
Yeah, and then you find the customers with Google Ads, local SEO.
Yep.
Those are the main ones.
Yep. Go through real estate agents a lot. That works really well for us. The way I see it is, it's another framework. They say hire 1 to hire 10, right? Like if you're growing a business, you don't want to hire all these people. You want to hire a manager that can hire all those people, right? I like saying sell to 1 to sell to 10, right? So if we start marketing to homeowners, well, they only own 1 home. So the statistical chance that they need a tree chopped down is very small. But if we're selling to real estate agents, they're touching dozens of homes on any given basis. It might not be their listing, but they're touring, they hear about it, they see it, they're in the game. So we're much more likely to get referrals from them. And then when we do, they're not as price sensitive because that person's either about to buy a home, so they have cash, or about to sell a home, so they're about to get cash. And it's going to be repeat business because they're touching all these homes. And any real estate agent needs a good vendor they can work with.
Right. One of the things that first initially sparked my interest in your content was, one, your videos are very well done.
Thank you.
And then I signed up for your newsletter, and I think you might have the best welcome email in any newsletter that I've seen, because there's so much value in such a short amount of time when I see that. And you just, it doesn't have to be super fancy. You just put it in a Google Doc of here are all the things, business ideas, or you had a Loom video, you talking about how to scrape, then you ultimately also have a scraping guide. What do you think is the most valuable resource that you've shared?
Maybe my cold emailing guide, just because you can launch any business with that. Maybe you want to have a cold email agency and charge $3,500 a month to do cold emailing for a B2B SaaS company. Works great for that. Maybe you want to launch a tree trimming business, an unsexy startup. Works great for that. You can cold email real estate agents or property managers or landlords. That's probably my favorite. Or the scraping guide, because they kind of go hand in hand, right?
Right. Just to give people more ideas for okay, they could do the cold email, but they don't necessarily know the offer. I think some people listening to or watching this might be like, oh, it didn't even occur to them that they could have a tree trimming business and not own a chainsaw. So how, is there another framework or way to think about business ideas to find this customer validation and then fulfill it either with other people?
You have to take action immediately. And I think it was Naval that said, impatience with action, patience with results. And I like to call that be impatient with the small things and patient with the big things. right? So like if you're building something that's working, it's clearly working, but it's not profitable enough for you to pay the bills, like be patient. Like you're going to get there. You can see where it's going. But if you have a question about something, like what if we didn't have to spend $350,000 on an incinerator? What if we could just rent one from a facility? Call one right then, because it's fleeting and you're going to lose energy, you're going to lose enthusiasm, and you'll never do anything about that.
I think a lot of people maybe are waiting for that perfect idea, that perfect thing, when in reality it's probably somewhere tangential right there, but they're just perhaps just waiting or procrastinating on it.
There's two things at play. Like if you just start the thing, even if it's not perfectly optimized, even if it's not perfect, it's going to lead you to the perfect thing. Whereas on the other hand, people don't put enough weight into starting the right thing. So I'm saying two opposite things, and I'm cognizant of that, right? Because I used to start any idea that came across my mind, right? Without taking the time to think. So my framework was, would this work? Like my third-party logistics company, would this work? Yeah, this would work because I've had Shopify brands. Everyone hates their third-party logistics company. Everyone. There's demand. We can make a profit. This would work. But if I would have thought for like another hour about like, of all the ideas at my disposal, should I attack this one? I would have said no. And I should have said no, because that business, like it went, like we had big flashy numbers, but the profit wasn't there. And so on one hand, just start the thing, just do the thing, get a customer, get revenue, you'll figure it out. On the other hand, if you have, maybe that's the differentiator, if you have a lot of opportunities at your disposal, don't just chase all of them. Put thought into which one should you do, not just which one would work.
Say, for example, a lot of the people watching might be marketing agency owners or might be savvy with using internet tools. How would they approach helping local service businesses expand, whether it's a landscaping company or a local salon? Like, what do you think the opportunities are there?
I could talk about this for hours. So one of the biggest bets right now, in my opinion, are managing GBP, Google Business Profile pages, which is basically a business listed on Google Maps. There's some upfront work you need to do optimizing the page, and then there's some ongoing work you need to do with soliciting reviews, responding to reviews, and updating your profile. Business owners don't know that that's valuable. And a landscaping business owner, they're probably busy as it is, and they have no idea that $1,000 a month to a marketer like you or I could pay them back $4,000 to $20,000 a month in new recurring jobs, right? This is what I would do. I would go to Outscraper and I would scrape every landscaping business in a city of, let's say, 100,000. There's about one tree trimming business for every 10,000 people in Allen. So landscaping, probably, let's say 1 in 5,000. So 20 landscaping businesses. I would scrape all of them. And then I would scrape all of the landscaping businesses in McKinney, Texas, which is right next door. And I would cold text or cold email the 20 in Allen and say, hey, I just love scraping. I'm a nerd. I'm a marketer. I did some market research. You might want to expand to McKinney one day. And I wanted you to know that in Allen, 1 in 5,000 people, or there's one landscaping business for 1 in every 5,000 people. And in McKinney, for whatever reason, it's 1 in 8,000 people. So if you're already doing great in Allen, you're probably going to do a lot better in McKinney because there's less competitors. I just thought you should know this. Good luck with your business, right? So you're leading with value. You're not asking for anything, but then you follow up because you want to make sure that they actually read the email and see it and ask if they took any action based on your value.
And then what happens? They say, oh, I didn't think about that. That's great. How would I do that?
Yeah, well, you basically, it's great because you're doing all this work. And I say all this work, but everything I just described takes about 8 to 10 minutes. But you're not just doing this for one person. You're doing that for all 20 landscaping businesses. And it's research that can benefit all of them, but to them, it's individualized and personal to them because they don't know you're emailing everyone. So then you come back and say, hey, FYI, I'm pretty tech savvy. I'm good at this stuff. I noticed that your Google Business Profile isn't owner verified or you don't have a lot of reviews. I can help you with that. And I can help you respond to the reviews. And I can use AI, and I really like getting ahead of that, which means I'm not that expensive at all. And it only costs a few $100 a month. And I guarantee you that if this doesn't result in like a 200% ROI increase, then I'll give you all your money back. You lead with the value of showing them that you're an expert in the matter with the scraping. And then you come back and say, in the process of doing this, I noticed you only have 4 reviews, been in business for 8 years. What's going on there? Well, I just don't need reviews. I'm busy. Okay, but surely you'd like more business. I can help with that.
That's such a great reframe on using AI, because a lot of people are going to try to like hide behind it, but then do that and not even address it. You're saying, hey, I'm really good at it. And by the way, that's benefiting you because AI is really good. And also it decreases your cost.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that before. That's really good. And then in terms of just the actual pitch for somebody watching, what are some ideas? I've seen that you've looked at tools like Built With and see like, oh, Shopify is really popular, but like Magento, there's still a lot of companies on Magento using that. And so maybe pairing that with a tool like Klaviyo or some of these other ones, like you have a unique way of coming up with very valuable business ideas.
Yeah.
Can you walk through a couple of those examples?
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Magento, because there's probably a selection bias at play where those ugly brands listed on Magento, like a regional distributor of pipe fittings, is doing like $24 million a year on an ugly website. And no one's hitting them up about email marketing, because every email marketer goes to Built With and scrapes Shopify Plus stores and not Magento stores. So there's two selection biases. The bigger stores are on Magento. The stores that are getting less sales pitches are on Magento. And no one's really looking at Magento, right?
And Magento, can you describe what Magento is?
Magento was Shopify before Shopify. It's just a platform to build your store, but it's clunky. It's not user-friendly. But that just means a lot of these, not just are they bigger, but they've been around for 30 years.
And so how might somebody find all the Magento stores?
You go to Upwork and you post a job posting and you say, I'm looking for someone with a Built With account. I just need you to click export on a search and I'll give you $20 right now. I built my email marketing business on AI. So right now you're probably paying, let me guess, $3,500 a month for 3 emails per week, and they're full color, flashy, and they're probably using AI, but they're not telling you, which means that their margins are 80% and they're not going to proactively drop their price. I'm going to come in and tell you from day one I'm using AI, and it's going to be a higher quality product. And I'm going to send as many, if not more, emails, and it's going to be $1,500 a month because I can handle 5 times as many customers because I'm using AI.
And so again, sort of owning that AI is actually like really good for all parties, and then also speaking exactly to who they are, because you know they're on Magento and you know that they're sending emails. And then if someone has done this before, it's like, oh yeah, I know the playbook. How about for someone just starting out? Maybe the move there is to say, own that as well. Like, hey, I'm just starting out. I just want to do a really good job. And I like what you said earlier, making a no-brainer offer. And then I'm either going to make you 200% or you get your money back.
Yeah, or you say, I'm going to be 100% free. No questions asked, because I want my first 2 testimonials. Now, I know this product inside and out because I've had a demo account on Klaviyo for 30 days. I've spent every waking hour in it. And I promise I know more than whoever you're paying right now. But even so, I'm not going to charge you because I'm new and I don't have a track record. That's why I'm not charging you, because I want to build one. And then on day 31, you get your testimonial and then you say, okay, thanks. And then they're going to say, well, we really like what you did. You say, okay, it's $500 a month. Wow. Okay. I was paying $3,500. Cool. And then on day 91, it's okay, this isn't sustainable for me. I got to go. Well, it's $1,500 a month. Okay. Well, then if you start at 1,500, you get no customers. If you start at 0 and are waiting to wait 90 or 120 days, then you're charging $1,500 a month.
Any other scraping ideas that you like?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask, because I got a massage on Saturday night with my wife. Massages are kind of weird because, you don't know who's good. And in the first 5 minutes, and you're like, okay, another hour of subpar massage, cool, right? But it's like there's no politically correct way of fixing that. You call Massage Envy and you're like, give me your best guy. And I'm like, well, who's our best, And so I thought, what if you used Outscraper and you scraped every massage place in DFW? You upload all of those reviews. Sorry, we're scraping all of their reviews. You upload them all to ChatGPT, or I use it's called GPT for Sheets, where you can insert ChatGPT into Google Sheets. And you say, I want you to pull out all the first names. Somebody will be like, oh, Chris was so great. Oh, Marissa was so great. This is the best massage I've ever had. I want all the first names. Okay, well, now you have a directory of the best masseuses in a metroplex. That's a business that does not exist today, right? And then you take the directory, well, how do I monetize that? Well, ads, or maybe those masseuses can pay for priority placements. We were just talking about directories, right? It's like, okay, now, like, we're not competing with Massage Envy. Now we're alongside them. And you can say, okay, don't just go in blind. Don't waste an hour and an hour of your life and $130, but ask for Marissa because 84 people in the Metroplex mentioned her in their review for whatever reason. So she must be pretty good.
So one of the things the audience really likes is like specific tools and resources and tech stacks. You tweeted the other day about your favorite productivity tool of 2024. What is that tool? And then what are some of your other must-have tools?
It's just this word counter app. It was $20 and it just shows me how many words I type on a daily basis in all of my apps. And it helps me understand like, wow, I type more in my iMessages app than I do in my emails. What's going on there? What do I need to fix, if anything?
And then what are some of the other tools that your most recommended tools for others?
I use TidyCal like religiously. I can charge for time slots, or I can have free time slots. I can have hidden time slots or public time slots. I put that link everywhere because it's a revenue driver for me.
And you've seen this now because not only have you done this for yourself and your own businesses, but you are putting out content that is really good and that has served as a magnet for people. That is how I found you. That is how, like, I'm sure tons of other people are discovering you. What are some of the themes that you've learned from, I don't know, all these different business types? Can you just kind of talk through interesting businesses that are doing 10K a month or 20K a month and what you see there?
So one kind of a crazy story is I put out a TikTok in July about a perfume vending machine. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw it. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
This freaking guy right here. This guy invented a vending machine that sprays cologne for $1. The profit margin is 92%. And if you really want to get smart with it, you'd put a QR code by each bottle of cologne where you can scan and buy it with an affiliate link drop shipped from someone else's website. You do no work and you make 15 times what you'd make on one spray.
And it just like immediately resonated with me as a good business idea. That's what I used like TikTok and Instagram for, is getting my ideas out of my head. And a lot of the commenters are like, oh, such a good idea. Why don't you do it? It's like, I'm already doing all of them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know why you're offended by this idea here. And it got seen like 20 million times. And it caused me to reach out to the manufacturer and say, hey, look at this video. What can we do? And I wanted to just sell them the leads because I was getting like 3 to 5 leads a minute. I wanted to sell them the leads and like point to their landing page, but they were like, oh, we're not interested. So I was like, okay. I want to own this data then. If you don't want it, I want it. And I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. But I went to Card and I put up a landing page and I literally just took one of my landing page and I copied it, changed out the name, form, perfume vending machines now in the US, name, email, phone. And after I did that, I was getting like 3 a minute. And I want 10 machines, I want 1 machine, 100 machines all over the world. Ended up getting 3,000 leads. And then the manufacturer was like, oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, let's talk. And now we have a company called Side Vending. And we've sold 6 figures worth of random vending machines, cotton candy vending, perfume vending, orange juice vending, all from reels that I post and leads that we collect and keep. And then we just act as a middleman and get them to the United States.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. Any other examples that come to mind?
Short form video. And it's like just the most asymmetric opportunity I've ever seen. Okay? So now that we have AI creating videos, creating transcripts, cloning voices with 11 labs. So you see a lot of videos now doing that. And that's like the silver bullet we talked about. That's like the easy way. I don't want to show my face. So I'm just going to use AI to clone my voice and faceless. Everyone wants faceless YouTube channels, faceless this. And it just goes back to the first principles. Like they want to have their cake and eat it too. But like, as everything goes that way, a real person talking authentically on short form video is going to stand out that much more, right? So it's like, oh, well, now short form is too crowded because of AI. No, now like your real voice and your real face, like people want more than ever.
You are an idea guy, but you also add one extra element that I think really helps and works. And that's like, you find real unique data. And so sometimes that's within your own businesses. Other times you just like research it. You posted recently about the idea about these like nursing home pods and using this like AI curation. Can you talk about that idea?
Yeah, I love that idea. Like that is such a good idea. And it will pain me if no one starts this. My best friend and business partner has been in home health and hospice for 15 years. So we were on my podcast just riffing about this in real time. And It was mostly his idea. We were just kind of adding to it. And where we landed was, genealogy, ancestry is getting a lot more important, right? People care about it more. All the data supports this. Now AI makes that capturing memories and stories and thoughts and records easier than ever. Okay, so you've got that going for you. Then you've got retiring and aging baby boomers, Gen Xers, and nursing homes, and home health and hospice is growing like crazy. So you have all these trends colliding and overlapping. There needs to be a way, and there's companies like Storyworth or something doing this, but this would be like confined to home health companies and nursing homes, where you would take a pod, like at WeWork, so you want like a quiet pod, something like that with a screen and just enabled with like ChatGPT and with a speaker, and a resident could sit down in there and it would start talking to them and say, hey, like, tell me about your life. And they would ask very strategic questions. What was the worst thing that ever happened to you? Best thing that ever happened to you? What are your best memories? Ask all these questions with the whole thesis being like, they might not know what to talk about. They might get in there and just start talking, but some might need some help. And then everything's recorded. And then the transcript would be sent to the children of these people, right? And then they would have their stories forever. And it wouldn't cost the children anything. It wouldn't cost the patients anything. And you could start it for free with the hope that they would, the nursing home would push it to potential residents, and it would help them increase occupancy, because one new patient is worth about $7,000 a month in net profit, assuming they're at like 80% occupancy, all their overheads covered, right? You put these in there and you can charge whatever you want to the nursing home, and they're happy to pay it, because you could add millions of dollars of value to one facility, and you're capturing memories. Like, it's the perfect business because there's no losers. The people paying for it can afford it. And if it's a good facility, then they're caring for more people and the kids have a better record. And I like that idea a lot.
And you can go buy or even build one of these pods. They're like, it's AI enabled, but like you could just have a laptop in there and just like record a Zoom call and then do that for the first, one.
Well, back to constraints equal creativity, right? It could just be an IKEA desk in the corner of a room with a laptop.
I love that idea. Here's a random question for you. I have a side consulting business and I help local business owners. In particular, one of my friends owns a local party bus business. For every ride, he's the affordable one in Austin. And so for every ride, he still makes like $300 profit. So he has decent margins to work with. The first thing I notice is just like setting up analytics is like this Google Tag Manager wasn't set up correctly. Google Analytics wasn't set up correctly. And so it's like now all that stuff is set up, and then doing things like local SEO or just optimizing his Google business profile page or Google business profile he's getting good reviews, but like doing the little things like updates and consistent reviews each week, and like looking what competitors are doing. What are other opportunities around maybe say like owning a city for like, okay, maybe it's local party buses paired with something else, paired with the directory. Any other like ideas that come to your head?
Yeah. Does it have to be? So it's funny you mentioned party buses, because I went to Nashville a couple months ago, and that's like the home of party buses. Right?
Yeah.
You go walk down Broadway and they're just everywhere. There's people on buses everywhere.
Roofless down there.
Yeah, exactly. I like the framework of going to like these destination cities. Like Nashville would be one. And then like, I'm not trying to call any cities out, but like Charlotte wouldn't be, because like Charlotte's great. You don't go have your bachelorette party in Charlotte. Right. You don't go there to listen to music. So take a city like Nashville, go there physically and just observe and think like, what can I copy and paste here in my city, maybe Austin, that would still apply here, right? And maybe it's party buses, right? I was thinking like they need to have a party bus, because in Nashville there's live music everywhere, but there's no party bus with live music on the party bus, right? Like an actual band on the bus playing for people that are on the bus. And it's literally, the framework is just like, take something cool, put it on a moving object. Yeah. Like in DC, they have a boat, like boat tours, and the boat is full of hot tubs. And you sit in hot tubs and you just go on a tour around DC. And it's like, there's all kinds of, boat tour businesses there, but only one with hot tubs, and they crush it. So it's like, okay, take something cool, interesting, fun, put it on a moving object in your city, or whatever city you're already in. If something like that is already working, like party buses, how can you How can you take a different party bus concept from another city and move it there? Because you don't want to be the pioneer. You don't want to be the first party bus in Austin. But if that's already proven, someone's already taken that risk, then just do a little better or a little differently.
Right. Or the like, I'm sure there's got to be like a bunch of upsell opportunities too for like, oh, do you want, other packages or like partnerships with other like either places to go, breweries, wine tours, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Or another idea is there's a guy on Twitter, Ryan Snedden. You follow him?
I don't think so.
He has a local newsletter for Annapolis, Maryland. There's like 100,000 people there. And you can monetize local newsletters better than anything. Like your CPM is on local newsletter is higher than any other type of newsletter because they're all right there. They're high intent. The open rates are always higher. And so he has a modest newsletter in Annapolis, Maryland. He makes good money from his sponsorships, but he launched a luxury bathroom rental business vertically integrated with his newsletter. And he got the idea for the bathroom rental business from my tweet. So they bought like a $20,000, like a nice bathroom that they rent out to weddings and stuff. Mm. And he uses his newsletter to find events to place it. And so who would have thought he gets all of his jobs from the newsletter. So if he goes and launches a luxury bathroom rental business without the newsletter, he's going to be struggling and paid ads and all this, and he'll probably do fine. But because of his newsletter that he's already monetizing in another way, this business is doing even better than the newsletter.
Again, distribution first, and then fulfillment second.
It's the classic luxury bathroom to newsletter play.
Yeah, everyone knows
We've all been there.
Yeah. What is it like working with your best friend?
It's awesome. It's a vacation every day. And sometimes it's hard because we disagree. And it's a lot easier to disagree as friends if it's just about like the outcome of a football game as opposed to your livelihoods. So yeah, it's either really fun or really hard, but mostly really fun.
What's the most impactful book that you read this year?
I love the book 3 Signs of a Miserable Job. So that's one of the best books. It wasn't this year, but that I've ever read that most people have never heard of. It's just a lot of great frameworks for managing people, working with people. It doesn't sound like an entrepreneurship book, but it really is.
Any last thing, any contrarian beliefs or anything that you've changed your mind on or have strong conviction of?
I strongly believe that 98% of humans operate at a 20% capacity of what they're capable of. And they don't need to be brilliant. They don't need to stay up all night. They're not doing enough stuff. And it's not like this hustle porn, productivity hack guru stuff. It's like life is very fulfilling when you do more things. I've got 4 kids. I had my first when I was 23. We've seen all 50 states in 60 days. I worked the whole time, donated my kidney, ran ultra marathons, starting all kinds of businesses, doing a million different things. I don't know, if I took the normal route, then I wouldn't have any stories. And I'd probably be happy, I'm sure, but I just feel incredibly fulfilled and genuinely happy. And I have a lot of good stories and life is awesome because I say yes and I do way too many things.
Do it for the story, get your foot in the door, find asymmetric opportunities. Any others that you want to leave the listeners with?
Just answer the question, like, what if? What if you got to answer that. You got to ask it, and then you have to actually answer it. Pick up the phone and call. Send the cold email. It takes just as much energy and effort to send an email to Mark Cuban as it does to send one to anyone, to your coworker. So why are you emailing Mark Cuban? Why he doesn't respond? So your feelings are hurt? Just don't be afraid of rejection. Plant a million seeds and see what sprouts.
See what sprouts. Do it for the story.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you so much. This is awesome, man.
Appreciate it.
Cool.